Before Qingmei's wedding, her groom ran away from the wedding. She begged me to pretend to be the groom and complete the ceremony. I didn't want to, but my dad had already severed our father-son relationship and forced me to agree. It was supposed to be nothing more than helping her through the ceremony. Instead, her family blamed me for everything. Li Qingxue was unmarried and already pregnant. To give the child a legitimate identity, she begged me not to reveal the truth for the time being. She wanted us to wait until the baby was born before announcing our breakup. Since we weren't legally married, she believed there was nothing wrong with it. After all, we had never even registered our marriage. My father was a respected high school principal. Li Qingxue's father took advantage of my father's reputation and connections. He opened a supermarket near the school and made quite a bit of money. A few years later, he began borrowing money from many parents under the name of the principals-in-laws. In the end, he ran away with all the money. Although the investigation proved that my father knew nothing about it and had never been involved, countless families still lost their life savings. My father's reputation was completely destroyed. Unable to bear the guilt and pressure, he fell into depression and jumped off a building. My mother panicked after being chased by the victims. During the chaos, she accidentally fell from a building and also lost her life. I tried to seek justice for my parents, but before I could do anything, I was involved in a serious car accident that left me in a vegetative state. Even while lying in the hospital, I knew exactly what was happening outside. Although Li Qingxue and I had never obtained a marriage certificate, everyone believed the child she was carrying was my illegitimate son. As a result, that child legally inherited everything that belonged to me. All of my assets were used to fill her family's financial deficit. From the very beginning, that wedding had been nothing more than a carefully planned trap. It was a dead end from the moment I stepped into it. Once again, I found myself back to 5 hours before Qingmei's wedding. I immediately switched my phone to flight mode, came up with a backup plan, and called my mother. I had just returned from the capital the day before. I lived alone in a villa by the lake near the airport, while my parents lived in a small apartment near the county school. It only took about half an hour to drive between our homes. As soon as my mother answered the phone, I lowered my voice and waited. "What's the matter, Xiaotian? Why are you being so mysterious? I received news that Li Qingxue's fiancé ran away last night. The wedding is going to fall apart. Didn't Dad hurt his waist while fishing a few days ago? Take him to the hospital for a checkup today." My mother was confused, but she didn't ask too many questions. She simply let out a snort and muttered that something had always felt wrong about the Li family. In her eyes, even the son-in-law they had chosen couldn't be trusted. She quickly agreed to keep my father away from the wedding. Then she asked about me. "What about you? Aren't you going?" "I'm not going. Dad will definitely be angry. Mom, please take good care of him." "Don't worry. He won't know." However, before she could finish speaking, my father overheard the conversation from the living room. "Whose call is that? Is Qingxue urging us already? I told them I'd go over early to help." My mother immediately stopped him. "Help with what? Your waist is injured. Do you really think they'll appreciate it? If you make it worse, don't expect me to take care of you later. Can you stop making a scene today?" My father was the principal of a high school, while my mother had always been a housewife. Whenever they argued, my father usually stayed calm and tried to reason with her, while my mother always responded with a fiery temper. It wasn't until after everything that happened in my previous life that I finally realized the hidden cracks in their marriage. My father's silence often turned into emotional distance, while my mother's constant anger came from years of feeling ignored. "Dad, don't go," I said firmly. "If you show up today, the Li family will only be even more embarrassed. Besides, everything is still uncertain. Why drag an injured person there? People might even think it's bad luck." My father fell silent. This was the first time I had ever spoken to him like that. After a long pause, he finally said, "If that's how you feel, then help them more when you get there." I simply responded with a cold "okay" before hanging up. After ending the call, I got into my car and drove toward the old town. Holding the steering wheel with one hand, my mind raced as I replayed everything that was about to happen at Li Qingxue's wedding. I knew I still had to go, but I couldn't go there the same way I had in my previous life. Then, a single name suddenly appeared in my mind. Qinglu. The girl everyone used to gossip about in high school. The girl I had secretly loved all these years. And the only person I could think of. She used to be the target of countless rumors at school. I once helped her clear her name, but for reasons I couldn't explain, I chose to keep my distance after that. After the college entrance exam, she moved to the south, while I buried myself in my studies and later focused entirely on building my business. The pressure of starting a company left me with little time for anything else. Even at our annual class reunions, we would only exchange a simple nod before going our separate ways. This time, I didn't want to leave myself with another regret. I also needed someone to help me deal with today's situation. It was such an abrupt request that I wasn't even sure if she'd reject me on the spot. The phone rang, and after a few seconds, it was answered. Yi Tian? Qinglu. I need to ask you for a favor. I tried my best to sound calm and composed, but in reality, my palms were covered in sweat. What is it? Can you pretend to be my girlfriend, just for today? The other end of the phone suddenly went silent, and my heart started pounding. Then I heard her laugh. Yi Tian, don't tell me you're in love with Li Qingxue and want to use me to make her jealous. I could only laugh bitterly. If I had feelings for her, I would have accepted when she confessed to me back in high school. Then why are you asking me? I can't explain everything over the phone, but I really need your help. Back in high school, Li Qingxue had confessed to me once, and I turned her down. After sending her away, I noticed Qinglu standing quietly behind a tree. Thinking about it now, I had already prepared myself to be rejected. To my surprise, she agreed almost immediately. Okay. Come pick me up. 10 minutes later, I arrived downstairs at her apartment. From a distance, I saw a slender figure waiting by the roadside. She looked even more beautiful than I remembered. Without any makeup, she still had a fresh and natural beauty that instantly caught my attention. The moment she got into the passenger seat, a faint fragrance filled the car. Now tell me, she said. What's going on? I didn't hide anything anymore. I told her that Fan Hao had run away from the wedding and that Li Wenda cared more about his reputation than anything else. She will definitely not cancel the wedding. So you think they will force you to become the substitute groom? It sounds unbelievable, but it's not impossible. It's not just possible, I replied. It's inevitable. That's why I need your help. As long as I already have a girlfriend, they won't be able to pressure me into it. Qinglu looked at me seriously. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. I know you make good money, and no matter what conditions I ask for, you'll probably agree. But first, tell me, do you already have a girlfriend? Without hesitation, I raised my hand as if taking an oath. Absolutely not. Only then did she smile. All right. From this moment on, I'm your girlfriend. I finally let out a sigh of relief. Thank you? Really, thank you, Qinglu. As I glanced at her, I noticed she was still wearing a sweater from last year, and the handbag she carried wasn't one of the expensive brands I remembered seeing before. I immediately turned the steering wheel and drove toward the highway intersection instead. The hotel isn't this way, Qinglu said in confusion. There's still enough time before the wedding, I replied while keeping my eyes on the road. Qinglu came from a single-parent family. Her mother worked in an elementary school cafeteria, and life had never been easy for them. Looking at the clothes she was wearing today, I knew she would feel uncomfortable attending such a lavish wedding banquet. If we're going to put on this act, then let's do it properly. Hearing that, Qinglu smiled and jokingly said, "Thank you, boyfriend." For a brief moment, I was completely stunned. But I quickly forced myself to stay focused. As I gripped the steering wheel, memories from my previous life continued flashing through my mind. Fan Hao's father, Fan Lei, was one of Jiangqing's wealthiest businessmen. He had tens of millions of followers online, owned a famous technology company, and was known by many as the nation's most eligible bachelor. In comparison, Li Qingxue was just an ordinary girl with average grades. She had barely managed to get into college after scoring a little over 300 on the entrance examination. However, during her sophomore year, the famous Fan Hao suddenly began pursuing her with great enthusiasm. The problem was that Fan Hao already had a fiancé, and they had been together for 3 years. Everything changed after Li Qingxue became pregnant. The Fan family suddenly encountered a financial crisis. Fan Hao immediately decided to end his relationship with Li Qingxue and prepare to marry his fiancée instead. That was the real reason the wedding had been cancelled at the last minute. Letting me become the substitute groom was the beginning of everything. Later, my family was destroyed, and I ended up in a vegetative state. Although Li Qingxue and I never got married, everyone believed the child she was carrying was my illegitimate son. In the eyes of the law, that child inherited everything I owned. It sounded completely unreasonable, but somehow she managed to make it happen. Fortunately, my best friend Anhu visited me in the hospital every single day. Because of him, I survived in that hospital ward for 2 more years. It wasn't until one day that I heard from Manhwa that Li Qingxue had lost both her children, while Fan Hao had successfully married his fiancée. Only then did I realize the truth. From the very beginning, Fan Hao's real target had been me. I graduated from Qingmei University, where I majored in computer science with a focus on artificial intelligence and distributed systems. During my sophomore year, I founded Qingmei Technology. Within just 1 year, our team successfully developed the first-generation drone swarm control system, making our company the fastest rising name in the industry. The project was later acquired through a strategic partnership, bringing us enormous profits. At the same time, our second-generation system, known as Universe, entered its closed testing phase. As soon as the test data was released, it attracted the attention of several leading drone manufacturers, including companies with military backgrounds. Among all of them, the one that wanted the technology the most was Fan Hao's Tianqiong Technology. The Fan family had built its fortune through real estate and eventually became the richest family in Jiangqing. However, after the property market declined, the Fan Group faced a severe capital crisis. Their greatest hope now rested on Tianqiong Technology. After my death, my company eventually fell into Fan Hao's hands and became the driving force behind Tianqiong Technology, allowing the Fan Group to escape bankruptcy. In this life, I would make the Fan family repay every debt they owed. An hour later, I brought Qinglu to the most luxurious shopping mall in Jiangqing. I wasn't sure which outfits would suit her best, but choosing the finest ones couldn't possibly be a mistake. When she walked out of the fitting room, she looked elegant and stunning. "It's beautiful. We'll take it." Qinglu didn't refuse. She simply smiled at me. "Thank you, boyfriend." That smile completely caught me off guard. By the time we left the shopping mall, my hands were already full of shopping bags. Qinglu naturally slipped her arm through mine as we walked together. Feeling the warmth of her touch and the faint fragrance around her, my ears instantly became hot. Without thinking, I suddenly asked, "Qinglu, do you have a boyfriend?" The moment those words left my mouth, I wished I could take them back. As expected, she reached out, poked my cheek, and pinched a small piece of it between 2 fingers. She pinched a small piece of my cheek and smiled. "If I already had a boyfriend, would I be acting like this with you?" It hurt so much that I immediately begged for mercy. All right, I was wrong. I'm terrible at talking." Hearing that, Qinglu finally let go. I glanced out the window and suddenly noticed a flower shop by the roadside. Without thinking twice, "Let's go buy some flowers." As soon as we walked into the flower shop, I didn't know much about flowers. I only felt that the bright red roses perfectly matched Qinglu's beautiful eyes. Without hesitating, I asked the florist to wrap the finest bouquet of red roses in the shop. When Qinglu received the flowers, the unhappy look on her face finally disappeared. Standing there with the bouquet in her arms, she looked even more beautiful than before. The soft fragrance of the roses blended perfectly with her gentle smile. I couldn't help but reach for her hand. She hesitated for only a brief moment before letting me hold it. Her hand felt slightly cool, but she didn't pull away. With our fingers intertwined, we walked side by side toward the parking lot, looking just like a real couple. After returning to the county, I first took Qinglu home so she could put away everything we had bought. Then I went to the hospital alone. My father, Yibin, was lying on the hospital bed. The moment he saw me, he immediately asked where I had been. He said he had been trying to call me all day, and Uncle Li was already worried sick. I calmly told him to stay in the hospital and focus on recovering. If anything happened, he should simply lie still and not worry about the Li family's affairs. I also assured him that I would go to the hotel later. Only after hearing that did he finally relax. There were only 30 minutes left before the wedding ceremony. I immediately drove to pick up Qinglu. On the way, I turned my main phone back on. Instantly, dozens of missed calls and unread messages flooded the screen. Most of them were from Li Qingxue. Her messages went from anxious, to impatient, to furious as she desperately tried to find me. Meanwhile, our classmates' group chat had already exploded with discussions about the wedding. After all, news traveled fast in such a small county, and rumors about the missing groom had already begun spreading everywhere. Anhu had also sent me several messages. Without wasting another second, I called him. "Hu Zi, have you arrived?" "Yeah, I have." Brother Tian, I heard the groom disappeared. I interrupted him before he could say anything else. The groom really did run away. Wait until the Li family starts looking for a substitute groom. Then lead everyone and push Lu Chunin forward. Lu Chunin was also our classmate. Back in school, he was nothing more than Li Qingshue's loyal follower. In my previous life, he was the one who caused the accident that left me in a vegetative state. However, his own ending wasn't any better, because he died at the scene. Hearing my plan, Anhu took a deep breath in shock. Brother Tian, are you serious? Lu Chunin is a complete disaster. At the entrance of the Crown Hotel, the red carpet had already been rolled out, fresh flowers decorated both sides, and the entire venue was filled with a festive atmosphere. The moment Qing Lu and I appeared together, we immediately became the center of attention. Qing Lu was already beautiful, but after carefully dressing up, she looked even more stunning. Countless eyes fell on us, especially on our hands that were tightly holding each other. Someone immediately asked if we were finally together. Without hesitation, I admitted that Qing Lu and I had been dating since high school and had simply kept our relationship private until now. Qing Lu calmly played along and stayed close to my side. After hearing the news, everyone began congratulating us, and before long, almost everyone at the hotel knew that I had arrived with my girlfriend. However, I still couldn't find anyone from the Li family. When I walked toward the bride's room, I hadn't even reached the door before I heard Li Qingxue crying inside, followed by the sound of something smashing onto the floor. The door suddenly opened. Li Qingxue was standing there in a luxurious wedding dress. Her makeup was flawless, but it couldn't hide the panic and anger on her face. The moment she looked up and saw Qing Lu standing beside me, she froze completely. It took her several seconds before she finally spoke. Yi Tian, you're finally here. Who is she? I smiled calmly. Qingxue, congratulations on your wedding. Let me introduce you. This is my girlfriend, Qing Lu. The moment she heard those words, Li Qingxue's face changed. Your girlfriend? Since when did you have a girlfriend? Why didn't I know? I calmly replied that my personal life wasn't something I needed to report to her. Then I asked if she really didn't recognize Qing Lu. After all, the two of them had attended the same high school. Li Qingxue immediately denied knowing her, but I simply smiled and told her that now she knew. Then I casually asked, by the way, when is the groom arriving? Those simple words instantly shattered the last bit of confidence on Li Qingxue's face. Just then, her mother, Zhang Lijuan, hurried over. She was well dressed, wearing elegant makeup. Although she was no longer young, she still carried herself with confidence and charm. She sounded exactly the same as before. Qingxue, this is bad. Fan Hao still isn't answering his phone. His assistant said he seems to have gone abroad. The moment those words were spoken, the truth became impossible to hide. Standing nearby, I quietly watched the mother and daughter. It was only now that I realized how good this family was at putting on an act. What? Mom, what should I do? Li Qingxue panicked. The wedding is about to begin, and all the guests are waiting. How am I supposed to face them? Zhang Lijuan was just as anxious. Then her eyes suddenly locked onto me, as if she had found her last hope. Xiaotian! You came at the perfect time. Look at Fang Hao. That child is completely unreliable. Please help us, just get us through today's ceremony. As she spoke, she reached out to grab my arm. She completely ignored Qing Lu standing beside me. I quietly took a step back, avoiding her hand while naturally shielding Qing Lu behind me. Then I calmly said, Aunt Zhang, how can I help with something like this? I'm just an outsider now. Besides, I already have a girlfriend. Everyone here knows that. Before Zhang Lijuan could respond, Qing Lu stepped forward. Aunt Yi Tian is my boyfriend now. Li Qingxue's eyes immediately fell on Qing Lu. She carefully looked at her expensive clothes, designer handbag, and the bouquet she was holding. The jealousy in her eyes became impossible to hide. She glared at me and shouted, Yi Tian, you did this on purpose, didn't you? You already knew Fan Hao had run away. Since you didn't want to help me, you deliberately brought another woman here just to humiliate me. I looked at her without the slightest expression. Li Qingxue, are you overestimating yourself? Your groom ran away because of his own choices. What does that have to do with me? Don't think everything revolves around you. Seeing the situation spiral out of control, Zhang Lijuan was almost in tears. Just then, my phone suddenly rang. It was my mother. Xiaotian, Your father insists on going to the hotel. I can't stop him. He says he has to help the Lee family save face. In the background, I could clearly hear my father's angry voice. The moment I heard it, the last bit of affection I still had for my father quietly disappeared. Mom, put Dad on the phone. A second later, my father's furious voice came through. Yi Tian, you unfilial son! Listen to me. Right now, you will promise Aunt Zhang and Qingxue that you'll help them. If you don't, then I no longer have a son like you. I smiled coldly. Dad, for the sake of someone else's daughter, you're willing to force your own son. If you care about Li Qingxue that much, then why don't you divorce Mom and marry her yourself? Wouldn't that solve everything? You unfilial son! Before he could finish, I heard the hospital's emergency alarm, followed by my mother's panic screams. Olji! Olji! Doctor! Doctor! The call was suddenly disconnected. I silently put away my phone, then looked at Li Qingxue and Zhang Lijuan. It seems my father won't be coming after all. You should think of another solution. After saying that, I turned around and walked straight toward the banquet hall without looking back. After all, I had already paid 200 yuan for the wedding gift. There was no reason to waste the banquet. Behind me, Li Qingxue completely broke down, while Zhang Lijuan desperately tried to comfort her. Outside, Li Wenda was running around explaining the situation to every guest he met, but the embarrassment and bitterness on his face were impossible to hide. The county's 3-star hotel wasn't very large. Everyone had already heard the argument outside, so there was no point pretending anymore. Besides, Anhu had already followed my instructions and quietly spread the news that the groom had run away. Within minutes, the entire banquet hall turned into complete chaos. People whispered, laughed, and watched the drama unfold like it was a live performance. Just as planned, Anhu suddenly pushed Lu Chunin toward the center of the crowd. Lu Chunin was barely 164 centimeters tall, had almost no eyebrows, 2 large front teeth, and an appearance that could hardly be called attractive. He immediately waved his hands. I won't do it! Someone beside him laughed. Then where will the Li family's reputation go? Although Lu Chunin was only a small businessman, he suddenly shouted toward Li Wenda. Uncle Li! Marry Qingxue to me! I'll give your family 1 million yuan as the bride price. Those words instantly silenced everyone. At this moment, what Li Wenda needed most wasn't reputation. It was money. Faced with reality, Li Qingxue and Zhang Lijuan could only grit their teeth and swallow their humiliation. Under the gaze of countless guests, some filled with sympathy, others with ridicule, and many simply enjoying the spectacle, the absurd scene of changing the groom was completed in a hurry. Meanwhile, I simply wrapped an arm around Qinglu and walked into the banquet hall. After all, today's wedding feast had been paid for with Fang Hao's bride price. The tables were filled with premium mitai, and every dish served was exceptionally lavish. Why let such a feast go to waste? I wasn't about to let such an expensive banquet go to waste. Throughout the entire toast, Li Qingxue's face remained deathly pale. Beside her, Lu Chunin kept pulling her from table to table, making the whole scene look even more ridiculous than the rushed wedding itself. The moment her eyes met mine and Qinglu's, the resentment in her gaze became almost tangible. She gripped the wine glass so tightly that her knuckles turned white. I simply raised my glass and gave her a calm, meaningful smile. Just wait, Li Qingxue. Your real nightmare hasn't even begun. Soon, the banquet came to an end, and the guests gradually left the hotel. Dark clouds gathered overhead, making it seem as though snow would fall before long. By late afternoon, the excitement had finally died down. I had drunk a little too much. As the cold wind hit my face, the alcohol rushed straight to my head. Qinglu looked at me with concern. Are you all right? I nodded slightly before handing her the car keys. Can you drive us back to the villa by the lake? She quietly took the keys and got behind the wheel. As the car moved through the silent streets, memories from my previous life flooded back into my mind. I saw my parents' tragic deaths once again. I saw myself lying helplessly in a hospital bed, unable to move or speak. Those painful memories weighed heavily on my heart. The entire drive passed in silence. When we finally arrived, I took a hot shower, hoping it would clear my mind. Instead, the alcohol only seemed to hit me harder. After changing into clean clothes, I walked back into the living room and found Qinglu still sitting there. The temperature is dropping outside, I said softly. Stay here tonight. There's a guest room. She nodded gently. The room fell silent again. Under the lingering effects of the alcohol, the emotions I had buried for so long suddenly surfaced. I instinctively reached out and held her wrist. She stiffened for a brief moment and turned to look at me, surprise flashing across her face. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, waking me from my sleep. The space beside me was empty. From the bathroom came the gentle sound of running water. As fragments of last night's memories returned, guilt immediately filled my heart. Just then, the bathroom door slowly opened. Qinglu stepped out with her damp hair resting over her shoulders. She was wearing my bathrobe, and tiny drops of water still clung to her fair legs. The moment Qinglu saw that I was awake, her face instantly turned bright red. Embarrassment and panic filled her eyes. We both spoke at the same time, then immediately fell silent. I took a deep breath. I'm sorry. If you want, I'll take responsibility. Qinglu looked at me quietly before gently shaking her head. You don't have to apologize. I froze. Then she smiled shyly. I did it willingly. I thought that day I was going to be beaten to death, but you appeared, stopped them, put your clothes on me, and even carried me to the infirmary. She slowly reached out and held my hand. Yi Tian. I've liked you since high school. Her gentle confession instantly melted the darkness that had been buried in my heart for so many years. The warmth in her eyes gave me a sense of peace I had never felt before, as if every painful memory from my previous life had finally begun to fade. Outside the window, snow quietly covered the world. Inside the villa, everything felt warm. My mother had already stocked the refrigerator with New Year's food and fresh vegetables before I returned home. I cooked a simple breakfast while Qinglu stood beside me, smiling as she helped prepare the meal. After breakfast, I drove her home. When we arrived downstairs, she hesitated for a moment before softly saying, My mom probably knows. We made such a public appearance at the wedding yesterday. She waited up for me all night. I immediately understood what she meant. According to our local custom, on the 4th day of the new year, a son-in-law should visit his mother-in-law's home with gifts. I'll come on the 4th day, I said with a smile. I'll officially visit Auntie. Qinglu's face immediately turned red. She nodded shyly before hurrying upstairs. Watching her disappear from sight, I quietly let out a deep breath. A new relationship also meant a new responsibility. But at the same time, it gave me an even stronger reason to protect everything I had regained in this life. After that, I returned to the hospital. My father had regained consciousness after collapsing the previous day. The moment he saw me, he started scolding me for more than 10 minutes. Finally, he looked at me seriously. So you're really together with Qinglu? That girl has never been honest since she was little. She knows how to deceive people, especially someone like you. Didn't you see the news a few days ago? A woman cheated a man into marriage and drove him to jump off a building. You can't control someone like her. I looked at him calmly. Li Qingxue told you all this, didn't she? You'd rather believe her than your own son. Then I asked, if you cared about her so much, why didn't you save her yesterday? My father was so furious that he almost fainted again. I said nothing more and quietly left the hospital. Meanwhile, my father continued calling Li Qingxue every single day. Even though her wedding had turned into a complete farce, whenever he imagined her being forced to marry Lu Chunin, he couldn't help feeling sorry for her. My father felt even more sorry for Li Qingxue and kept cursing Fang Hao for abandoning her. I simply looked at him coldly and said nothing. On the 2nd day of the new year, Anhu asked me out for a drink. The moment we sat down, he couldn't stop complaining. Li Qingxue is unbelievable. She thought she could treat Lu Chunin like a tool, but before it even got dark yesterday, Lu Chunin dragged her into the lounge. The Li family almost called the police. He took another sip before continuing. But in the end, Lu Chunin's family delivered a 1 million yuan bride price, so the Li family swallowed their anger. He shook his head helplessly. Seriously, no matter how smart someone is, they still can't compete with a complete psychopath. Then he suddenly laughed. I wonder if Fang Hao knows what's happened. I'd love to see the look on his face. Early the next morning, I put on a formal suit, prepared generous gifts, and visited Qinglu's home. Mrs. Qing was exactly as I remembered, a gentle woman who had lost her husband years ago and raised Qinglu by herself. Throughout the visit, I behaved respectfully and sincerely. I openly expressed my feelings for Qinglu and shared my plans for our future together. The conversation went surprisingly well. By the time I left, Mrs. Qing was already treating me as her future son-in-law. At that moment, my relationship with Qing Lu had finally become completely stable. Although countless dangers still lay ahead, I had never felt more motivated than I did now. Meanwhile, the Li family's situation grew worse with each passing day. Several years earlier, Li Wenda had invested heavily in real estate and purchased more than 10 apartments. Back then, the rental income had been impressive, but after the property market collapsed, those apartments became nearly impossible to sell. Even the 1 million yuan bride price from Lu Chunin wasn't enough to fill the financial hole. After being abandoned by Fang Hao, Li Qingxue had no choice but to endure everything in order to squeeze more money from the Lu family. On the 8th day of the new year, Anhu invited me and several classmates to a reunion dinner at a local restaurant. Qing Lu was supposed to come as well, but her mother had asked her to visit relatives first. She messaged me, saying she would join us later. After several rounds of drinks, everyone had relaxed, and the atmosphere became increasingly lively. Suddenly, the private room door was pushed open. Li Qingxue stood at the entrance. For a brief moment, the entire room fell silent. Anhu was the first to react. With a teasing smile, he stood up and joked. "Qingxue, you're a newlywed now. Why didn't you bring your husband with you?" Li Qingxue ignored him completely. Her eyes remained fixed on me. "Yi Tian, we need to talk." I slowly put down my wine glass and looked at her with an expressionless face. "I don't think we have anything to talk about." As soon as I said that, Li Qingxue let out a cold laugh. "Why? Is it because you feel guilty? Because you and Qing Lu have been acting this whole time? You only got together to take revenge on me, didn't you?" I frowned. "Li Qingxue, what nonsense are you talking about?" Instead of answering me, she turned toward everyone in the room and deliberately raised her voice. "Everyone here knows that Yi Tian and I grew up together. We were childhood friends. So why did he suddenly bring Qing Lu to my wedding as his girlfriend?" She looked at me with eyes full of resentment before continuing. "I admit I argued with Qing Lu when we were in school. But it was just a disagreement between girls. She's always been jealous of me. I only said a few words to her back then, yet she's held a grudge all these years. Now she finally found the perfect chance to get revenge. She doesn't really love Yi Tian. She's lying to him." The room instantly became quiet. Several classmates exchanged uncertain glances. I slowly stood up. "Li Qingxue, stop making things up. My relationship with Qing Lu has nothing to do with you. And what happened between you two back then wasn't some ordinary disagreement. It was bullying. It had nothing to do with me then, and it has nothing to do with me now." Li Qingxue ignored my words and continued her performance. "Yi Tian, we've known each other for so many years. Do you really want to watch me end up like this? Even if you hate me, you shouldn't let another woman use you just to get revenge." Hearing that, my patience finally ran out. "Enough. Stop pretending. You know better than anyone what you've done. You were Fan Hao's mistress. Everyone in Jiangqing already knows that. He dumped you because that's exactly what you deserved. So who exactly are you acting for now? Was marrying Lu Chunin not enough? Now you're trying to drag me into your mess too?" I looked straight into her eyes. "Take a good look in the mirror. You don't even deserve to compare yourself with Qing Lu." The smile on Li Qingxue's face gradually disappeared. Then she suddenly sneered. "Fine. If Qing Lu really loves you, then tell her to admit it herself. Otherwise, she's only after your money." Just then, a cold voice came from the doorway. "Who said that?" Everyone turned toward the entrance. At some point, Qing Lu had already arrived. She stood quietly at the door, staring directly at Li Qingxue. The hatred in her eyes was so sharp it almost felt tangible. Li Qingxue immediately looked at her. "Qing Lu, tell everyone the truth. You only got together with Yi Tian to take revenge on me, didn't you? As long as you admit it, I'll apologize to you in front of everyone. And I'll beg you to let Yi Tian go." The moment those words fell, Qing Lu's entire body began trembling. I immediately walked over and gently supported her. "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's all over. I'll handle everything from now on." Hearing my words, Qing Lu took a deep breath. She looked at Li Qingxue, then at me. When she saw the nervous look on my face, she suddenly smiled. "So what?" She took one step forward and pointed at Li Qingxue. "You're right. I hate you. I hate you for bullying me in school. I hate you for spreading rumors about me and making me almost drop out. Seeing your wedding become a joke, seeing the man you chased abandon you, made me happy. Being with Yitian just to make you angry, that's only an extra bonus. Are you satisfied with that answer? Her voice was filled with hatred. Even I was shocked for a moment. But then I understood. This was exactly what Li Qingxue wanted. She wanted me to misunderstand Qinglu. I immediately walked over and held Qinglu's hand. I love her. So what if she's taking revenge? I still love her. I don't care about money, even if one day she wants everything I own. I'd give it to her. The whole room fell silent. I looked at Qinglu. The answer is still important. Then I asked, Qinglu, will you marry me? Li Qingxue's face instantly changed. Yi Tian, are you crazy? I ignored her completely. My eyes stayed on Qinglu. Her eyes turned red. The next second, she threw herself into my arms. Okay. Li Qingxue shouted again. She admitted she's using you. I smiled calmly. I know. And I'm willing. I'll marry her. I'll give her everything I have. I'll treat her like a princess. So what? Qinglu couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She hugged me tightly. Only then did I look at Li Qingxue. Stop living in your own fantasy. In my eyes, you're just a clown. After saying that, I held Qinglu's hand and walked out of the room, leaving Li Qingxue standing there speechless. Outside, I looked at the open fields ahead. Then I turned to Qinglu. Would you like to go register our marriage? It's not a bet. It's not a proof. It's just because we like each other. We should be together. Would you like to? Qinglu slowly stood up and stared at me in disbelief. Her eyes were filled with shock. Yi Tian, are you serious? This is too fast. I know it is, I said softly. If you think it's too sudden, we can get engaged first. She immediately shook her head. No. There's no need to wait. Let's do it now. Before the Civil Affairs Bureau closed that afternoon, we officially registered our marriage. The moment we received our red marriage certificates, I took out my phone, snapped a photo, and posted it online.